to Road to Recovery. I'm Apryl Chapman Thomas, chatting today with Andy Ninelis of Echo Canyon River Expeditions in Canyon City, Colorado. Andy, tell us a little bit about Echo Canyon's River Expeditions and all that entails.
Sure. So Echo Canyon River Expeditions, we've been around for a good long time, since 1978. We've been the largest commercial river outfitter in the state of Colorado for going on a couple of decades now. We have about 150 people on the team, about 55 which are raft guides. And then, of course, we have other flags that we fly. Our 8 Mile Bar and Grill, which is a full-service food and beverage program. It happens on-site here at our Echo Canyon office. And then right across the road, we have our Royal Gorge Cabins property, where we have luxury cabins and glamping tents.
Okay, when it was time for the shutdown, did it all happen at once? Was it staggered? What was the process?
Well, for us, and of course I can only speak for our own unique situation, we cross a lot of barriers. Basically, we're in a lot of different industries, outfitting, hospitality, food and beverage. So different things were affected differently, if that makes sense. And then there was the reality that kind of at the peak of the COVID shutdown, that's when we would have just been spooling up our river program. So we didn't really have to shut that down. That program concluded in the fall of 2019 and normally would have been getting wound up heavily around April 1st. Of course, everyone knows what they were doing the first part of April.
And the reopening process, how did that go about?
So let's answer that question honestly. It went about in a very hurried manner. Allow me to explain. We were trying to gather information, just as so many businesses and individuals have been doing. I was reading an email that was sent out by one of our county commissioners very early that morning, before 7 o'clock, and I'm reading it and I'm trying to understand it, and I'm like, I think we're open. There was no fanfare. There was no direct letting us know we were open. We kind of had to figure it out on our own. We conferred with a few of our peers who arrived at the same conclusion. And then a lot of outfitters scrambled, specifically the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend. That's when we found out we would be able to be open. We started to accept reservations about 1 o'clock on that Thursday, and we were running trips that following Saturday morning.
What safety measures were put in place? What did y'all do to ensure, hey, we're safe, it's okay?
Boy, how much time do you have? First of all, if you were to go to our website at raftecho.com, you'll see our COVID banner. Everybody has one. We've gone to the trouble to try and put that information into an infographic so it's easier to digest. It's hard to cover just how many things have happened. And to answer your question honestly, I need to reach outside of Echo Canyon River Expeditions and point out that we, being the Colorado River Outfitters Association, as well as the Arkansas River Outfitters Association, really mobilized during that lockdown period. And a lot of us have kind of other lives or other areas of expertise, or maybe other facets of their operations. And so we were able to pool a lot of talent and a lot of information. For example, for our food and beverage program, where we're dealing with a company called Ecolab, who buys a lot of chemicals from Keystone, we went directly to the well, so to speak, to try and find out what type of enzyme-based cleaner would be appropriate for certain types of equipment. So everything from not only what are we washing, but what are we washing it with? And then, we're also a transportation company. So that's a different paradigm. That's a different thing. That's a different type of chemical. It's a different application process. So, that would be the transportation component. Then when you get into food and beverage, again, there's a couple different things that we're doing there. And then there's our retail environment, as well as our lodging environment. So we're using different chemicals, for example, like quaternary ammonium, or maybe a peroxide-based product based on contact time. But we're also trying to be mindful of the fact that if you're using an enzyme-based detergent, you need to be doing a titration test, and you need to make sure that you're getting an adequate rinse, because sometimes the products that you're using to clean and disinfect may in fact be harmful to the skin. Not to everyone, probably a small percentage of the population, but I could go on if you wanted me to, but as you can tell, quite a bit.
And this information can be found at y'all's website?
So what we have, if you click on the COVID banner of our website, you're going to see what I'm going to call a distilled version of what we have going on. We haven't gone to the length of attaching things like MSDS numbers or links to products because we feel that's information overload in a world that's already feeding us information with a fire hose. So what we've done is we've equipped our guests with the ability to access information for everything that we do. And then, of course, we're high touch. And what I mean by that is pick up the phone and give us a call. We're happy to talk to you in more detail. Because different people have different concerns. You know, if someone has a serious allergic reaction to rubber, they need to have a different conversation with us when we're talking about wetsuits or maybe what to wear on the river. Just as we have different conversations with people about dietary concerns. Does that make sense, ma'am?
It does. It does. And it's refreshingly honest. And that's what's needed right now, in my opinion. But
you know, I want to add to that, if you don't mind, if people are really interested, if they're wondering what it's going to be like to reopen, and most importantly, deal with the public at large. My least tenured manager has been with me for almost 20 years. I have some very talented people who've been here for a very long time. We know how to work with the public. We also spent the money. If you were here at our facility, you would see external hand washing stations located everywhere. You would see signage. You're going to see hand sanitizer. You're going to see staff wearing facial coverings. You're going to see all these things in play. All these things are going on. Okay. We've spent the money. We've organized. We talk about it as a team. I would give this a B. Anyone who tells you they're getting an A, I would question how honest they're being about their situation. It's a lot harder than people think. You know, if we're being honest, we have to acknowledge there is a percentage of the population that does not want to abide by best practices. And you get to deal with those people too. So there's a hodgepodge of different things going on in the marketplace, from the consumer base and how educated they are or how educated they choose to be. And then the throughput of the organization, making sure that they have mitigating steps and best practices in place, that those things are there, but then also enforcing those things amongst your staff and amongst your guests who are paying you money to walk through your door, and you're telling them first thing in the relationship, no. And what I mean by that is, I'm so sorry, sir, you are going to have to go get your facial coverings. We're only allowed to operate because we have those. So I think that's a really important thing for people to realize, is if you're dealing with the public, get ready to deal with a whole wide variety of very broad spectrum of belief systems when it comes to everything we're all dealing with right now.
What advice would you give? Would it just be that stick to your guns, stick to what you know, right?
Stick to your guns. Stick to your guns, especially if you're leadership within your organization, because your staff is only going to be as good as you are. So you are on the spotlight every day. And get ready to feel the aggravation from, quite frankly, your customer base coming at you if they are a group that does not necessarily embrace it.
What should they do about that aggravation?
Be patient, smile a lot, even though they can't see you're smiling because you have your facial covering on. And just, you know, talk to your team and figure out what you can do to do better. I think everyone's organizations and the uniqueness of what they may offer in the tourism space is subtly different. And therefore they have their own unique challenges that they may need to deal with. Another thing that is hugely important is your physical space. What is your physical space? What opportunities do you have? And more importantly, what opportunities do you not have? So we have a very large footprint here. So we developed an outside check-in process straight away. We leverage digital waivers in order to keep a no-touch check-in process, if at all humanly possible. So yeah, you just have to kind of look at your space, look at your flow, think about how things have happened in the past, acknowledge that, and then start all over again, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. Thank you for that. Let's go back to when the closure period, what was going on with your entities during that time? What were you doing? Were still fully staffed? Were you preparing, getting ready? What was?
Well, again, for me, I can only speak for my own personal situation and perhaps my peers who are in the same industry that I am. For us, the timing of the situation, it was a blessing and a curse. So, you know, all of our staff, we have had no staff layoffs, no furloughs, no nothing. All of my full-time management team, all my FTEs have been unaffected financially. Okay, we did qualify for PPP dollars. Let's be honest. Without that, that may not have been the case. But we've been able to keep everybody on in that regard. But we were not in a position where we had our seasonal staff on site. So we never had to, you know, tell people to go home or we'll call you back later. We were able to engage them very early on, communicate with them about the fact that we're not sure when we'll be able to be open. We're hoping that we're going to be able to be open. And credit where credit is due, my operations manager, Jessica Smith, who's been here for almost 20 years, we were doing regular Zoom meetings with staff just to stay in touch with people and talk about their concerns and let them know that we wanted them here, but now wasn't the right time. So from a staffing perspective, we were very lucky. What it's caused is a delay. So now we had to bring everybody on in very quick order. And we're a proactive company. We like to be organized. I can't say we were the most organized. It was a real challenge to try and onboard even existing staff in a very compressed timeline. Does that somewhat answer your question, ma'am?
It does. Thank you. What about the marketing during the time? What did you do? How did you keep the name out? How did you make sure people
I would call it on a trickle. I think everybody was very mindful as far as their digital spend. You also didn't want to be tone deaf and say, gee, hey, come rafting now, while people are locked up at home and worried about their physical and their financial health. So, as far as the footprint that we did have in the digital space specifically during that time, essentially our message was stay home now so you can come see us later. And that's really all we did. Very light footprint. Once we were able to reopen in a very small capacity, we maintained a lot of social, so showing our team actually working, getting ready, even though we couldn't operate. We still had PPP dollars at work. We had staff members on site. This place looks great. We cleaned everything. Things have got a new coat of paint. We did a lot of work like that. I think a lot of businesses took advantage of that time frame. And that's certainly what we did during that time frame. And we showed that. So like I say, we leveraged that on social so people could see that we did care, we were trying, we were thinking through these processes and procedures. Here we are doing these things, and we're doing it in the world of best practices as we know it.
What do you wish you knew then that you knew now?
Boy, that is an excellent question. I can't say there's any one thing. Apparently, April, it's everybody's first pandemic. I say that very tongue-in-cheek. I wish I would have known that it's okay. There are no wrong answers. That would be probably the epiphany that I have arrived at. Just try, really try. You're not going to come up with the right answer every time. So learn from that mistake so that you can hopefully do a better job next time. But don't be hard on yourself, because it's going to be difficult. And by not being hard on yourself, but keeping your eyes and ears open, listening to your staff, listening to your guests, you can see where you can do a better job. We've been proactive, but it feels like we've stumbled and we've fallen a little bit trying to get there along the way. And in hindsight, we wouldn't be as good as we are now had we not done that then.
Advice. What advice would you give to your fellow?
I'm sorry, April, would you repeat that?
Advice. What advice would you give to those in the industry?
What advice would I give to those?
In the industry, in the tourism industry, what advice?
Oh, in the tourism and travel industry? Boy. Again, I'm going to go back to being patient. I'm going to go back to giving great service to people. And I'm going to point out to you that great service means being honest with people. Letting them know what they should expect before they come to your organization, letting them know that that's exactly what the standard they're going to be upheld to when they come to your organization. We in tourism, we do such a great job. We love people. We're all people, if that makes sense. We enjoy listening to people's stories and where they're from. I mean, that's what we do. We show people a great time. But in the world of COVID, you just really need to set the table and set those expectations in advance and make sure you're communicating that to them well. Otherwise, they're going to be let down when they get to you. So again, being proactive, it's everything your listeners know. It's everything a good business does already. It's just there's a different sense of urgency and a different sense of emphasis that must be placed on communication.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for being available today and sharing your insight with everybody. We appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure, April.